This happened to me around 12 years ago, and I still occasionally shudder in mild embarrassment from it. I was on a training course in Bristol. Unfortunately, the rest of my colleagues had been set up in an alternative hotel to me, so I would eat dinner by myself in my hotel restaurant each evening. On this particular evening, I was sitting at the table in their fancy-ish restaurant. Think linen cloths, luxury napkins, and a little table candle. That night, there happened to be a man all by himself at a different table. We were sort of sitting facing each other, but across a fairly empty restaurant. As I was reading the menu, which was made from thick paper, I kept glancing over at him because I kept getting the feeling that he was looking at me too, and he was. So we keep exchanging glances at each other. And don't get me wrong, he is very handsome. But then he gives me a little wave and I'm now looking straight at him thinking, wow, he must really like me. Is he waving because he likes me? Does he think he maybe recognizes me? Is he just being friendly? These thoughts all ran through my mind. No. He calls out to me, "Miss, your menu is on fire." Unbeknown to me, whilst I had been checking this guy out, I had dropped my hold of the menu and the top end of it had dipped into the candle and set alight. At this point, I'm panicking and trying to flap this small fire out. Finally, I get it to that smouldering, smoking stage where it's just about stopped when the waitress comes over and asks for my food order. "Steak and chips, please," I muttered, whilst passing her half a burnt-out menu. Her face said it all. I redirected my gaze back to handsome guy. Alas, he was gone. Never did see him again, but hope he got a laugh out of my ditziness.
I had flown into Beijing from Shanghai, and because my flight was so delayed, I arrived to check in at the hostel way past midnight. I get really anxious about waking people up, so I literally just left my suitcase at the foot of my bunk bed and gently climbed up to get into my bed. It was a 4-person room and every bed was occupied. Anyways, I climb up only to realize that my bed wasn't even made. The hostel had just left the clean sheets and pillowcases at the end of the bed for me to make up myself. Thanks, guys. In my anxiety of waking up my roommates, I just put on one of the pillowcases and went to sleep wearing my jeans, socks, and everything else other than my shoes. Unsurprisingly, I had a very uncomfortable sleep. I kept waking up at random points throughout the night and I had no idea why. The next day, the hostel provided a great wall tour. I signed up and actually made friends with this one guy. We hit it off straight away and started chatting about the hostel. He started complaining about one of his roommates who had kept him up all night with his snoring. So he kept punching the guy's bed to wake him up and stop the snoring. I replied by saying something like, "Oh yeah, people who snore shouldn't be allowed to stay at hostels." And we spent the rest of the day complaining and laughing about the snorer. You probably already know where this is headed, but yep, I was the snorer, and I was his roommate who kept getting woken up throughout the night because of the dude's punches on my bed. We had a really good laugh about the whole thing, although I probably won't stay at hostels ever again now. One summer, I went on a youth group trip to Israel. A bunch of us who had never met before were traveling on a big bus together. One day in the northern part of Israel, the bus stopped at a beach to take a break. We all ran out into the water to cool off, and it felt great. We're all splashing around and having a ball when we start noticing that the waves are bringing in oodles of jellyfish. One of the taller boys had gone a bit further out when this big wave came in and crashed on top of him. He turned around, wiping the water from his face and sweeping his hair back, all smiles and laughs. Not realizing that the wave had slapped a jellyfish right onto his chest, a large bluish-purple one. Naturally, he freaked out as the little beastie started stinging him. He didn't know what to do. Nobody wanted to touch the thing, but luckily one of the other guys got brave and swiped it off his chest. Tallboy wasn't alone. Almost everyone got stung that day, and our beach adventure was cut short. Fortunately, the jellyfish weren't poisonous, but their stings burned and itched unbelievably. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending on how you look at it, urine helps jellyfish stings really well, actually. Nobody was proud of it, but out of desperation for relief, some of them got to know each other really well as they'd end up urinating on each other to soothe the wounds. Talk about a bonding experience. Bottom line, Be careful of creatures in foreign waters. I stayed at an Amazon lodge in Peru about 14 years ago. We went out for a night hike in a swamp to look for snakes and frogs. It was so cool to see all the insects and animals out at night. I made the mistake of briefly rubbing up against a tree that was protected by fire ants. What I mean is, the tree gives the ants sweet nectar, and the ants protect the tree from animals. I got a couple bites on my arms and swatted at them, complaining about how surprisingly bad they stung. This one girl decided it was the funniest thing ever as she made fun of me and one other guy who also brushed up against the tree. She was all smug and said, "That's why I wear this big heavy sweatshirt so that I won't get stung like you idiots." Well, when we got back to the lodge, all of a sudden, annoying sweatshirt girl starts screaming. Like, blood-curdling screams. Apparently, the fire ants got on her as well, found their way through the heavy sweatshirt, and started biting her all over her upper body. She was now trapped in this giant freaking sweatshirt, getting repeatedly bitten by the fire ants. It was comical watching her trying to pull that sweatshirt over her head as she was being repeatedly bitten. I tried not to laugh, but lots of us were tired of her by then and couldn't stop laughing at the sweet, sweet irony. She didn't speak to anyone else the rest of the time we were there.